Hey guys, welcome back. We're taking a look at another pedal today. This is the Plexi-Drive Deluxe from Wampler Pedals. In case you guys haven't guessed already, I'm a pretty huge fan of Wampler Pedals. They make really amazing stuff. I especially love their overdrive and distortion pedals. I already did a demo of the Wampler Pinnacle that's also up on the channel. And this is another one that's kind of in the same, ballpark, I suppose you could say. So the Plexi-Drive Deluxe is aimed at that Marshall Plexi type tone. So these are the Marshall amplifiers, kind of mid 60s, can go from a nice clean, sound light breakup to pretty heavy distortion when you push them real hard. And there's a lot of controls on this particular pedal to mimic some of those different sounds. So before we get into the pedal, my clean sound, I'm coming out of a Fender Hot Rod DeVille going into my Torpedo Captor X. I have like a British 4x12 cabinet simulation kind of set up to go with the Plexi type sound here. So the clean sound is this. And you'll hear a little bit of reverb there. That's also coming from the Captor X, just a little bit of room reverb in there. All right, so again, clean sound. And if we switch on the Plexi, and I have the gain up here at noon, we're going to get something that sounds like this. There's a really wide range of gain on the pedal here. So before we dive into that, just a couple of quick things about the controls. This is an older model of the Plexi-Drive Deluxe. I've had this one since not too long after it came out, actually, the original one. So since then, they have updated the names of some of these controls to make them a little bit clearer. Namely, the pre-gain and the post-gain. They have changed the name of those. I think I've seen on the new ones that the post-gain just says bypass. So the post-gain is essentially you're turning the pedal on and off. The pre-gain is a boost. And there's a knob here that says pre-gain as well right here, and that just controls the level of that boost. And we're going to talk about that boost in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. When you turn on the post-gain side here, that activates all of these controls here at the top, the level control, and these two little toggle switches here. So almost everything, the pre-gain control just controls this boost here. All right. So the post-gain control right here, that's just the amount of gain coming from the pedal, essentially. So if I turn that down a little bit, I might need to boost the volume a little bit to compensate. Pretty clean sound, just a little hint of breakup happening there. Now, if I crank that up a little bit, I'm going to put it up a little bit past noon. Turn the volume back down a little bit. I'm on the bridge humbucker for everything right now, by the way, on the guitar. So a really nice, full, thick sound. I don't even have the bass boost on, and I have the bass control down a fair bit, and it's still got a lot of low end, a lot of beef to the sound. Of course, some of that low end is coming from the simulated 4x12 cabinet as well. But regardless, if we I'll kind of crank that gain up a little bit so you can see what this pedal can do. And this is still no boost involved. This is just the post gain. So not like metal territory, right? But definitely you can get into some of the 80s rock stuff with that pushed all the way up. If you were to compare that to like the Pinnacle, for example, the Pinnacle gets those kind of sounds, that kind of gain level at a much lower point on the dial. So the Plexi-Drive is a little bit lower gain than the Pinnacle, but they do have a little bit of crossover in terms of the amount of gain that they have. The sounds that you get out of the pedal are different. But anyway, I'll push this back just a little bit here, and we'll go through what some of the EQ controls do. So the EQ is right up here on the top. We have the treble, the middle, and the bass. So we'll start off with the bass control here. If I do that, you're going to hear you get a lot more low-end thump, which is really fun to play with if you're just in a room by yourself. In an actual mix, if you're playing with a band, I tend to run the bass control down quite a bit. Otherwise, I find that it just gets muddy and kind of gets lost. But when you're at home, or if you're recording in a studio or something like that, and you can tweak things a little bit more afterwards, you can definitely play with that bass control. Push it up if you want. Really cool. So I'm going to put that back down now. We'll take a look at the mid control. All the way to the left is that scooped mids type of sound. So if I was going to do something, metal-ish, I don't know if that really works with this pedal, but you sort of could. Kind of. And then if we push the mids all the way up, we get this really interesting kind of sound. It sounds to me kind of like if you take a wah pedal and you can put it halfway and don't actually move it up and down, just kind of stick it in one position, you get this really nasally mid-focus type of sound. Kind of reminds me a little bit of that. That type of thing. So really, really mid-heavy. You can get all the way from totally scooped mids to like way too much mids, which can be really handy if you're in a mix, if you're playing with a group. You might need some extra mids to kind of help sit in the mix a little bit better. So that's where, if I'm playing on a live show, I might push this up a little bit. And now maybe my rhythm sound is... whereas if I'm playing at home, I don't need quite as much, so I might back it up. And lastly, the treble control. Treble control is really, really sensitive. You can get a huge range, just like with these other ones here. Whoop, sorry about that. Put that camera back. If I turn it all the way to the left, really, really dark. If you turn it up to about noon, we get this kind of sound. So still kind of dark, but more treble. And then if we really crank it all the way up, it gets pretty bright. Yeah, really nice. I tend to run it pretty high up, really, because it, these are darker kind of amps that this is simulating, and so if you have that treble control down a little bit, it might get a little bit muddy. So now these other couple of controls here, the two toggle switches here, the bass boost and the bright switch. So the bass boost is meant to simulate running into a 4x12 cabinet, kind of what I'm doing here with the Torpedo Captor X anyway. So if I'm going to hit that, you're going to get a bunch of bass out of this. Okay, here I'll just do a couple of short examples. Here it is off, and we'll put it back on. It can be pretty subtle depending on the settings, but it just gives you a little extra thump. The bright switch, on the other hand, is not subtle at all. So here it is with the bright switch off. Yeah, definitely not subtle. So it kind of reminds me, I'm assuming it's a slightly different circuit, but it reminds me a little bit of that switch on the Wampler Pinnacle that goes between the vintage and modern, two different levels of EQ. It gives me a similar kind of feel there. So if I'm looking for like a nice lead sound or like a bright rhythm sound, I'll bump that gain up a little bit, put the bright switch on, and now I've got like really nice, and it works great for some nice lead stuff too. So that brings us to the pre-gain here, or the boost, and this is based around a tube screamer type circuit. Now, so tube screamer, for anybody who's not familiar, is a very mid-range, heavy overdrive pedal. So similar type of thing to when we crank the mids here, right? You get more mids in the sound, except that it also introduces more gain. All right. So if I have I'll pull this back a smidge here. So here's my gain, just with the pedal on, just the post gain. You know, so that's a really nice kind of rhythm sound, maybe like a type of thing. If you hit the pre-gain, let me bump that up a little bit. It's going to give you some more juice. So here it is off. So it introduces some more gain to the signal, but also has a little bit of that mid-range kind of honkiness, that nasally type quality that comes with a tube screamer. Now, when you're just sitting in the room by yourself, you might think, "Ugh, that sounds a little nasally. Why would I want that?" Well, going again back to the concept of if you're playing with a group, if you're sitting in a mix with the whole band, that mid boost is going to help you to kind of poke through and actually be heard really nicely. So it's great for if you want to do like a solo thing. So I might, for example, maybe run this up a little bit. This is going to get some pretty high gain settings here. So maybe my main rhythm sound for a song is here. And then for my solo part, I hit that boost. And I might even do a little extra treble boost there as well. Quite a lot of gain there. By the way, one other interesting thing about the pre-gain here is it's actually completely independent from the post-gain. So you can run this even without using the post-gain section. So here's my clean sounding at just the Fender. Pre-gain. And again, this is just the level for the boost. Now, a tube screamer typically doesn't get used just running into a purely clean amp like that. Normally, you'd have an amp that would have a little bit of, that would already kind of be close to breaking up. The Fender's not really that close to that. A little bit, so push that. Kind of get there a little bit, but typically I would use a tube screamer type circuit to boost an amp that was already overdriving a little bit, or push a pedal that's overdriving, and that's what we're really doing here. So again, add the pre-gain. You can use this pre-gain to really take this from like a low gain sound to a high gain sound pretty quickly. So if I run this back down a little bit and get a nice, you know, I can hit the pre-gain. A little bit cleaner. Great for chords if you want to like. And then I can hit the pre-gain and I get a nice lead type sound. And especially that setting, you can really hear that kind of honkiness from the mids character there. And so there we go, guys. That is it. That is the Wampler Plexi-Drive Deluxe. For the most part, anybody that's curious, when I run this, I tend to run it here-ish. Sometimes I'll run the treble back with the boost on, and I get a really nice... depending on the amp that I'm running into, I may or may not have that on. If I'm running into a Vox AC30, maybe you don't have the bright switch on. But so that's typically how I run it. I don't actually use the pre-gain a whole lot. I have a couple of tube screamer type pedals or a Wampler Tumnus, a Klon type pedal that I like to use to boost this. But if I'm doing a gig and I need a smaller pedal board or something like that, I can definitely get away with using this for a gig. It sounds great. So that's it. That's the Wampler Plexi-Drive Deluxe, and I'll see you guys again real soon with another demo.